Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Behind the Rail podcast. It is Wednesday night. We've got a pretty cool show planned out for you. We are going to make this one all about the Wilson event. This was an All American event. We've got Joshua Boothe, who is helping run this tournament series. We've got Jay Schwartzkopf, who took first place. We've got the second place finisher, Chad Davison, and fourth place, another Kansas guy, Jeff Scott. So they're all going to join us on here. We're going to talk about the event, talk about the series, talk about the fishing conditions, and just try to get into their mindset that day on the water and maybe some of the pre-fishing and stuff like that. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We are growing this channel. We're growing in subscribers quite a bit. Last I checked, we're creeping up on like 380. So we're almost to that 500 mark. Make sure if you guys are not subscribed, you go do that. But we are going to go ahead and bring these guys on over and we'll get right into it. If you guys have any questions for us, make sure you're posting those and we'll try to get to those as quickly as we can. We've already got somebody joining us here. Fat Basses TV. Make sure you shoot us some questions, buddy. I'm going to go ahead and bring these guys on here. What's up, Jay?
Oh, nothing much. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We got Chad here as well joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Jeff.
How's it going, John?
And Joshua Boothe.
How's it going, fellas?
So we got a pretty good squad going here. We've got Kansas Kayak Bass Fishing joining us here. Do any of you guys recognize that feller? No? My wife's telling me I missed out on Applebee's, so I am hanging out with you guys instead of enjoying the deliciousness that is Applebee's. So I got me a little Good Sense sub instead. All right, so somebody's asking why it's not on YouTube, but it looks like it is. Yes, it looks like it is. All right, guys, what we are going to do is we're just going to get into this event. So we'll kind of just like pass the mic around here. First things first, though, I do want to ask Josh some questions about, maybe some stuff that went on before we even started to get into the pre-fishing. So how did you decide on Wilson? What all went into making that decision? I'm curious.
Well, I actually did a whole lot of research, this past winter to figure out the schedule for the All American Kayak Series. I wasn't basing anything off of what the city's Chamber of Commerce is willing to pay or what, sponsorships are wanting to pay for us to come to their towns or their lakes. I was looking at the best lakes possible, spread out to where anglers could actually have an opportunity to get to at least 3 of these events without having to spend a ton of money. Wilson Lake, we needed a venue in Kansas, southern Nebraska area, and it just seemed like the best option. I mean, it was one of the bigger lakes. It had a good bass population. It could handle all this. And so, I'd never been there before. It was a roll of the dice, to be honest with you. I just went with my gut and said, okay, let's go with Wilson Lake.
Heck yeah. Did you look at like tournament, winnings, or did you look at some of that stuff? Like,
yeah, I went through everything, and it just seemed like, no disrespect, but it almost seemed like it's the only lake in Kansas. There's some other decent, small reservoirs and lakes, but as far as getting, big water, it seemed like the only and best option.
I think that's probably fair. For the Kansas guys, Jay and Jeff, where would you recommend other than Wilson? Do you have a recommendation for another spot?
I don't think you went wrong with Wilson. That's the first time I fished it, and it was excellent. So I'd love to go back there. Other choices, I'd say maybe Melbourne or even Perry. They're not quite as big, but I think those would be good options.
Jay, I saw you shaking your head. He says, no, we want Wilson next year.
Yeah, maybe Melbourne, but Wilson for sure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we got a pretty good sponsor offer after being there too to come back to Wilson. So they're at Sylvan Grove, that bar and grill. They want to host our award ceremony, and they'll shut the whole restaurant down and give us the entire building. So I'm kind of working on something with them.
Good.
We're going back to Wilson next year.
Hell yeah, that's good news. I like that.
It's gonna be better. We'll be sitting in AC and getting some good food. They got good food there.
I'll have to look back, but we did an award ceremony there back when I did the KBF event there, their like satellite event or whatever, and they didn't shut down the whole thing, but we had like a little back room or something. It might be the same place.
Could be.
El Dorado, don't go to El Dorado. Sorry, Fat Basses. That wasn't a great suggestion. It's a big lake. It's just tough.
We looked at Melbourne, but we just really wanted size. I mean, we were expecting that. We're still expecting us to grow to an average of 80 to 100 anglers per tournament, and we don't want everybody on top of each other. That's no fun. We've all been there, and that sucks. So we don't want to be on small water, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at the schedule, just to make sure everybody's got enough room and enough access points. That's kind of important too.
I wonder if we could somehow get the state not to dump a couple bass boat tournaments on top of us.
They were not supposed to do that. I had my permit first, and I had to double check with them. And I asked the lady, "Is there anything else going on?" Nope. There's no more tournaments going on, and we don't double book tournaments. So it's a good thing you got this in time. Like, okay, great. Book 2 more tournaments on top of us.
Yeah, that's. But I mean, it did not affect the limits at all. I don't think. I mean,
no. When you're on big enough water, I mean, down here in southern Missouri, like Table Rock or even Lake of the Ozarks, we're kind of used to that. As long as you've got enough water, let the boat guys go out there. It doesn't really affect you.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it sounds like a lot of people are excited to hear that the All American is going to be back at Wilson next year. So I know I'm excited.
We'll be back. We'll be back, and it'll even be better than it was this year for sure.
That's awesome. That's good news. Okay, Wilson was amazing and would be my first choice. Marina bumper boats. Wilson again, stiffer than a wedding pecker. Okay.
That's pretty stiff.
Let's not have bumper boat tournaments. So, yeah, it sounds like it got pretty crowded at times, but
it was. I was worried about it, but everybody seemed to handle it really well and professionally. So there was no issues that I'm aware of that were a big deal.
No, I don't think so. Jay, you got some heat on you now. They're coming for you. It's not just the Kansas guys anymore.
Yeah, I usually do up there anyway.
So cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and appreciate what you do, Josh. And if you guys are interested in fishing one of these All-American events, I know they've got one coming up. When is the next one, Josh?
It's July 10th at La Crosse, pools 8, 9, and 10. And I think that's going to probably be our biggest event of the year. I think we'll probably get the biggest participation, biggest payout, and probably the most fish caught too. The water is really low on the Mississippi River right now, so accessing some of these backwater areas is right up our alley. That's what we do in kayaks. And if you want to get out on the main river, the flow's not too bad, and you can rip them smallmouths up. And so I think we're going to hit it just right. That was the plan. Fingers crossed.
Heck yeah. Yeah, we had 41 at Wilson is what it looks like. So hopefully next year we can get, 70 or 80.
Yeah, at Ouachita we had 60 something, and at Lake of the Ozarks we had 60 something. So I think we're at kind of around that 50, 60. It's not bad for the first year.
No, not at all. So definitely, if you Kansas guys, I'd love to see some more Kansas guys out there. We had a bunch of people traveling for sure, but there's a lot of Kansas guys that I think may be wanting to join in next year. So
We've got Lake 10 Killer on the schedule this year too. It's not too far for some of them Kansas guys.
I think I might join that one. I might join you for that one.
Cool.
Cool. Well, Jay, we're gonna pick your brain a little bit here. We're gonna start with you, and I'm seeing that you had a 94 3/4 inch limit here. We had a 19 3/4, a 19 1/4, a 19, an 18 1/2, and an 18 1/4. I heard you mention somewhere that you didn't catch a lot of fish, and maybe it was on a post that you made today, but you were catching the quality. So, what did you do? What did you do to make that happen, and what were you doing to target those quality fish?
I was throwing a swim jig, mostly bluegill pattern, casting back into the sticks as far as I could, shallow, and swimming it out basically.
Heck yeah.
Just all quality were biting it basically. I ended up landing, I think I landed 12 altogether.
And you just stayed persistent.
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't. Once I started catching on a swim jig, I kept throwing it the rest of the day.
Yeah. You've got some confidence in that area, in that lake, in that bait. What kind of goes into that, or is that something that you normally fish in those conditions? Yep. Might be.
Yeah, if I can't catch them on top water, I'll throw a swim jig pretty much in that area. Or that, I don't know, that style of cover or whatever.
Yeah, because last time you were getting them on a buzzbait, weren't you?
Yep.
Okay, we got kind of a poor connection. What about you, Chad? I know you had a day or two of pre-fishing there. What did you go into the event thinking?
Yeah, so I've never been to Wilson before, so it was good to get there a couple days early and get on the water. I was really expecting like June and hot. I'm thinking post-spawn fish, and I'm thinking like an offshore deal. Of course, I'm looking at the shoreline, seeing all those big boulders and rocky shores, and I'm thinking like Table Rock is kind of what I had in my mind coming into it. And then you get there and it was kind of throwing me for a loop. You see a big rocky shoreline and you're expecting like a deep channel bank, and you're like a cast off the bank and it's like 5 foot deep. So it was kind of an adjustment for me. And but it didn't take long before I started getting some bites around all the those pockets of flooded vegetation and stuff. And I'd kind of I actually heard from a buddy that just a week before there was still some like spawning / pre-spawn even fish is what he was saying. So, I started to get clued in pretty quick, and I had a pretty good practice, caught a lot of solid fish, not as big as like I had a couple 19s in the tournament. I didn't catch any 19s in practice, but I had 17s and 18s, and Friday was a super topwater day for me. In the morning, I caught at least 15 topwater fish that were all 16, 17 inches. And I wasn't really trying to lean on them. I was really trying to cover water and just look for areas. And I just kept catching fish until the wind got up really bad on Friday afternoon and kind of shut everything down. Couldn't really fish. It was just trying to get back to the ramp and survive at that point. It was kind of a unexpected wind situation for me. But I guess what happened though is a lot of the areas, those pockets that I was fishing on Friday and catching fish, all that wind blowing in there really dirtied it up. And I don't know if the bite just changed and I didn't figure it out, or if it was like chocolate milk in some of them. And So I wasn't able to get them to bite as well, and I stuck with the top water for a while in the tournament, and I was actually really struggling until mid-morning. I came upon one windblown point that I was throwing a chatterbait, and right off the bat, as I was rounding this point, I got several hits, and I think they were actually fighting over it. And I was reeling my chatterbait back to the boat, and I saw several big fish follow it back to the boat, and I was kind of like, oh, I think I found something here. Backed off and spot locked it, and just sat there and fished, in one spot, and caught every fish I weighed in the tournament came off that spot. I did have to rotate baits, and I left and came back, and sometimes you'd have to just let it rest a little bit and come back and you'd catch another one. But several on the chatterbait. I think I had one of them on a square bill, one on a swim jig, but they were just super shallow. There was like some small stumps up there and like a foot or two of water, and the wind was just blowing in. And I think one of the keys was there was like those weed beds they went down both sides of that point. And I feel like some of those fish had pulled out of those weed beds and onto the point. I don't know if the shad had moved or what, the wind or whatever, but they were just stacked up on that point, and they were all good ones.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so you were there. You fished for a couple days, or 1 or 2 days before?
Yeah, I fished. I actually got there Wednesday, and I was camping, so I'd set up my campsite and everything, and got out on the water for just like an hour on Wednesday night. Caught a couple on a whopper plopper right at sunset, and then I fished all day Thursday. I fished the Hell Creek area, and I was catching a lot of fish there, and I liked the look of it, but I got the feeling that it was going to get a lot of pressure from our guys, and then there was also the 2 bass boat tournaments, and I just kind of decided I was going to try to find something else, and that was just going to be my backup spot, but I didn't really want to deal with all the congestion in that area. So and then I went, I think there's a ramp, I think it's called Cedar Creek maybe, but it is way, way up the river. And I fished there Thursday afternoon just to check it out, and it was just blown out up there. And I caught a few catfish, and that was it. So I pretty much wrote that off. And then Friday I fished in the area. I ended up fishing in the tournament.
Nice. Jay, did you do much pre-fishing? Do we still have you on the line here? I don't know if we do. He left and rejoined, so I think he's having some connection problems here. But Jeff, what about you? I know you said this was a new place for you, and maybe you did a day or two of pre-fishing.
Yeah, I actually the weekend before we had a tournament out there with the Flint Hills Kayak Anglers, so I went and fished it. I think I fished around the state park. I think I caught just a little over 80 inches or something. But I went out a couple days early this last week and pre-fished some, and we pretty much found the same pattern. Fish were real shallow. We were catching spawning fish. Excuse me.
Got to stay hydrated, just like out there on tournament day.
Catching spawning fish, and we were catching a lot of fry garters actually. And once I kind of thought we went to this one spot over off Manuka Point. There's a big point there, and there were a bunch of laydowns, and we immediately hooked a couple fish. So we kind of just let that area rest. And I decided that's where I was going to go, because I thought I figured most of the kayakers would at least go up Hells Creek and State Park area. So anyway, I went there, and of course that wind changed. Was all week was blowing out of the south, and it switched out of the north. So that kind of changed the way I was going to fish it. Because if anybody knows me well, I'm a real slow fisherman. I'll live and die by finesse fishing. So I ended up early morning throwing a swim minnow, 5-inch swim minnow, just on a keel weighted hook, and immediately first cast hooked into an 18.5. And initially thought, oh, this is gonna be a terrible day, but turned out being all right day. I caught a bunch of fish. I probably caught at least 25 fish. I think I had 85 inches by like 7 a.m. or something like that. And then I just couldn't. I caught a lot of fish. I just couldn't get any upgrades.
I saw you up there early, and I was rooting you on. I was like, man, Kansas, Team Kansas, baby.
I ended up finding this submerged tree line like 50 yards out in 5-6 foot of water, and I was just throwing that swim minnow, through those trees, and that's where I was hooking a lot of my fish. I ended up catching a few, throwing just a Texas rig beaver bait, but majority of my fish came on the swim minnow.
Okay. And the swim minnow, is it like a paddle tail or?
Yeah, it's a mayhem bait, just like paddle tail.
No underspin.
No underspin. I wanted to throw an underspin, but I didn't have any, so I just used a keel weighted hook. So. Okay.
And where you were fishing, was it fairly clear?
I probably had 3 foot visibility, maybe.
Yeah.
So not as clear as up to where everyone else was fishing, but it wasn't near as bad. We went and fished way up in the upper end, and it was chocolate milk up there. So it was right in between.
Heck yeah! So you kind of stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit there.
Yep, just a lot of luck involved too. So
I tried something completely different, completely new. I had a buddy send me the wake bait. Some of you may have seen on my social media, and it's a fairly large, custom made. It's like 1 ounce, wake bait, be in the swim bait category, right? And I just decided that I had a just ridiculously small limit, and I was gonna try to aim for some big fish and target the big fish. And I threw that from probably about 10 o'clock on. And I caught 5 fish. That's it. And I was able to cull every single fish that tiny fish that I had. And that was completely new to me. Brand new bait for me and everything.
Yeah.
He said he don't like casting and reeling. So that's why you're a finesse guy, huh?
Joe knows me well. I know we had one other guy, Shad, was really tearing him up on a wake bait. And I can't remember if that was the week before or if that was pre-fishing that we were.
He has confirmed it was the week before, he said. Caught a few early, apparently, on that pattern. So, all right, so you guys did some pre-fishing. The day of the event, you both did something different than you normally would do. Stepped out of your comfort zones a little bit here. What kind of structure were you guys targeting? You guys maybe mentioned it a little bit, but kind of go into some of that and how you broke that down.
Well, for me, I mean, I was focusing on those pockets that had a lot of the flooded vegetation in them. The water level was dropping continuously throughout the time that I was there. So it felt like, every day that was shrinking a little bit. But, up until right in the tournament, that was the deal for me. But I did catch some fish. I found one creek cove that had some giant trees in it, which seemed pretty rare for that lake. And there were some were even probably close to 3 foot diameter, great big trees that were laying over in 5 to 10 foot of water. Some of them were still standing. The cove was full of shad and activity on Friday. So I was catching some fish around there. I lost a big one in those trees. So that was kind of the exception for me to that flooded vegetation pocket, shallower deal. I was just kind of pitching a shaky head worm and letting it fall, and they were a lot of times they were hitting it on the drop, like while it was falling down, or if it might hit the bottom and I'd hop it a time or two and they'd be there. But so that was a deal, and I did catch some fish on that in the tournament, but they were none of them that were helping my limit. They were like 17 inchers. But on Friday, I found a rocky hump that was like a ridge that came out off a point with a hump with like, I think it came up to like 7 foot or something like that. And on Friday, I was catching smallmouth. They were stacked up on that hump, and I was throwing the shaky head and catching smallmouth. They were like 16 inchers. They weren't real big ones, but it was like a kind of a backup pattern, and it was something different than that weed bed pattern. But I tried that in the tournament, and it had changed, or I didn't figure them out. They weren't biting the same, and I wasn't catching them there. So, man, I'm really lucky that I found that point with the fish stacked on it, honestly, because a lot of the stuff that was working in practice kind of dried up for me. And at mid morning I was kind of down. So I feel pretty fortunate to find that deal that I did. I caught all the big fish on.
So this is something that we do like to get into on this format here is, so how did you kind of pull yourself, like, did you let it affect you mentally? Do you have like something that you do say a prayer? Do what do you have something that you do that kind of keeps you grounded and motivated to keep going?
Oh, I've been fishing tournaments for a long time, probably about 25 years out of a bass boat. I'm new to the kayak scene, but it's pretty much the same mindset, throughout the course of the day, it's just a series of like 100 decisions, and it's just you try to just I just try to keep basically telling myself, just try to make good decisions. Think about what I'm doing. Don't just randomly go down the bank and just kind of phone it in. I mean, I want to consciously think about what I'm doing. And if I feel like I have a chance of catching a fish doing that, and if I don't, then I need to do something else. But, I was telling myself all morning, I'm just trying to think about what spots I want to go to next. What's been working, obviously I started to figure out the topwater deal's not working. So I started throwing some subsurface baits like square bills for a while, and the square bill wasn't working. So I went to the chatterbait, which was like a huge decision that I made that ultimately was the right decision, and it made all the difference because they were really eating that good for me. And you just got to keep your head in it. You can't let yourself start to kind of feel too frustrated. I mean, you just have to keep moving forward, keep thinking about making I just try to ask myself, am I making a good decision? Am I going to look back at this later and wish I would have done something different, and just try to stay focused on, what's the next right decision going to be.
Yeah, no, I think it's important not to make any, rash decisions, and sometimes those sort of things can pay off, but you really kick yourself in the butt if they don't.
Yeah.
Jay, it looks like we might have a little better connection.
Maybe.
Let's try it out. So what we're talking about, and this might actually fit, how your day went. You said you caught like 12 fish all day. I think I only caught 10, and that's it was kind of it was like a grind for me. So what helped you keep your head in the game and not get discouraged?
I guess, I don't know. My morning started out slow, but I was consistently catching one every so often. So I figured at that point I didn't worry about it too much. Once I got 5 or 6 fish. I went ahead and posted them at that point, and then after that, it was just didn't really matter, just catching what I could. But I don't stress out about it too much.
Is as well as you do in a lot of these tournaments. Do you consider yourself competitive? Or are you just kind of...
I'm competitive for sure, but I'm just happy to be fishing. So
Yeah. And you're just kind of in your own backyard at this point.
yeah, especially at Wilson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fish there 2 or 3 times a month probably.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Jeff, what about you? So you were in it early with a big limit, early on. What kept you going? Did you make any calls, or how did that all go down? And how did you stay in the game?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had like 85 inches around 7 a.m. I probably, I caught a lot of fish after that. A lot of the fish that I caught were off of this windy point. I kind of fished that out, I decided to leave it alone, hoping that maybe it would reload. So I worked down the bank, and we'd catch fish there. I just couldn't catch any upgrades. I came back to that spot later, and, I went probably from, 10 to about noon where I didn't get a bite. And I was starting to struggle a little bit there, but, I'm pretty easy going. I'm out there to have fun. I don't get too wound up or anything, or I just keep grinding, and I just couldn't catch a big fish there towards the end. So
yeah. Okay, so we got a couple. We're a little behind on the questions here. What area? This is for Chad. What area did you fish, if you don't mind sharing?
I put in on the Manuka East Ramp, and then I headed towards Hell Creek. I've got the Old Town autopilot, and I feel like my range is I can comfortably go 3 or 4 miles, and one way, and feel like I can not worry about running out of battery, and be efficient that way. And so that's what I did. And there's a lot of coves in that area, pockets and coves, and I had some that had been productive in practice, and then the point that I ended up catching the fish on wasn't even, I think I might have had one blow up on it in practice, but it wasn't even something that was on my radar. I was just kind of going by it, and made some casts and started getting bites there. So, but that's the area I fished.
Heck yeah. Joe Douglas is going to bed, so he'll hopefully he'll hop on tomorrow morning and watch the rest of this thing. Run it up. Chad, what's your go-to Omega lure?
Oh man, there's so many to choose from, but I mean, as far as like a go-to, it's probably the 1/4 ounce shaky foot with a Senko on it, which is one of their shaky heads. They've got a couple different models of shaky head, but the shaky foot is like a football shape. It comes through rock real well, and I've actually found it. I can work it through brush piles and stuff pretty good too. But it's got a really good hook design that you just don't lose fish on it. It's kind of a wide gap style, but it's got a unique hook angle. Their Pro Mega jigs have the same kind of hook design, that it's really good at hooking fish and keeping them hooked. So with that Senko, I mean, you can fish it shallow, you can fish it deep, and it gets a lot of bites. So that's probably would be my go-to.
Heck yeah. Jay, casual bass guy, says he likes your style. Fish hard and don't sweat it. Jay's a hammer, especially at Wilson. He knows he's going to catch fish there. Heck yeah. Appreciate the comments, guys. Keep them coming. Let's go around. Let's go around on this question. Jay, let's start with you. What is your go-to lure when fishing is tough? And did that play a factor at all at Wilson?
I throw a Nico a lot if I'm looking for a bite. Might, all vary color and size, but that's kind of my go-to. And no, I didn't throw it at Wilson.
Chad?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question? I didn't catch that.
What is your go-to lure when fishing is tough? And did that play a part at all in Wilson, whatever this go-to lure of yours is?
Well, for me, I mean, like I already said, the shaky foot, but also just like a regular Senko, just Texas rigged with no weight. I did catch some fish on that at Wilson when there was an area like if you got back there around those weed beds and the wind that had died down and it was just slick calm, I could throw that Senko back in the either back. Sometimes they were like hanging out. You could see them roaming around right in front of the weed beds, but then sometimes they were back in there, and you could kind of pitch it back in around the reeds and stuff, and catch some doing that too. So that was definitely something that I had ready to go, but it turned out during the tournament there was wind most of the time, and so I was doing a little bit better on moving baits. But
yeah, heck yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of the same way. My go-to is kind of just anything Texas rig, beaver bait or worm or anything like that. I like to fish real slow, but that wind coming out of the north that made that really difficult. So that's when I picked up swim bait, and I'm not typically, like Joe said, I don't like to cast and retrieve. I like fishing real slow, pitching but it worked out. And I fish a lot of Ned rig out there too. Just this Hawkeye's lure has a EWG net head that I like using.
Heck yeah. Chad says, John, were you mad I pulled up next to you and stole a fish in front of you? Yeah, I was mad. No, he really didn't. He's making it sound a lot worse than it is. I was kind of hunkered down in this area. I kept seeing fish, and then as I looked closer, like the visibility wasn't real great, but I was probably looking about 5 feet down, about 5 feet of water, and seeing these fish moving around. And then as I hung out in this area, I think a majority of them were not the species we were looking for. But I kept seeing fish in this area, and I think some of them were because he kind of pulled around the point, and he was a good, 75 yards from me or something, and he throws a shaky head in some of the standing timber, or not a shaky head, but a wacky rig, and he catches one. And so, no, I wasn't mad, but I was mad I didn't pull one out of there, that's for sure. So if you guys were the host of this show, this is something, and this maybe you guys can help me come up with some new questions for this format, though. What is one thing that you would like to know about your favorite angler, or maybe your biggest competition? So if this was your show, what's one question, if you wanted to get behind the reel, if you wanted to get into the mindset of that person, what's one question that you would ask? Jay, do you have one in mind?
Not really. No.
Let's start with Chad. We'll come back to Jay.
Man, I mean, I feel like it's really interesting to me. Everybody has their own fishing style, and it kind of carries over to what kind of boat they're fishing out of. And I would like to hear guys talk about, what kind of platform they're fishing out of. Some guys are paddling, some guys are trolling motors, some guys are pedaling. And, I feel like a lot of times the paddling guys, it seems like to me, it would be better at getting way back into those secluded areas that are hard to get to, and maybe like it's harder to fish in the wind with a paddle kayak, it seems like to me. But for me personally, I mean, I was coming from the bass boat world, and the autopilot, fit my fishing style really well. I can stand up and fish all day, and I can move around quite a bit, and it's real, just stable, and I can bring a lot of crap with me, which is one of my weaknesses. Is I have a really hard time narrowing down, rods and tackle, so I bring too much stuff. But anyway, just talking to guys about what kind of kayak they're fishing out of and how that relates to their fishing style.
Okay. So why don't you answer that question for me? I know, we kind of know what you're fishing out of, but how does that relate to your style?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like what I was saying, it's the bad thing about it is, the only drawback really to that autopilot is just it's big and heavy. So like if I was gonna try to get back somewhere that didn't have a boat ramp, or you're going to have to, maybe access wasn't very good, that's a problem for me. So I tend to stick to areas that have boat ramps. And but other than that, it's like I said, I mean, I absolutely love fishing out of it. I can stand up, which for me, I've had a difficult time adjusting to like having good casting accuracy and presentations while I'm sitting down. It's really important to me to like make a really careful presentation to where the lure lands softly and you're really accurate. And I have a hard time doing that sitting down. So I like to stand up and fish, and that boat really works well for that. And just, I've got room for all my stuff. I really like being able to spot lock. That was like a absolutely critical part of my success in this tournament was the wind. I mean, it was howling pretty good there when I was catching those fish, and I don't think that I could have tried to maintain boat position and fish and not blow in, because they were real shallow, and just being able to spot lock, and then I was basically fishing off the back of the boat, and I didn't have to worry about anything. I could just cast, and then if I hooked a fish, I didn't have to worry about blowing into the bank. I just fought the fish. I got plenty of room. I got a great big net with a handle that extends, and it's just, it feels like a small bass boat to me, and so it suits me well.
Heck yeah, man. Appreciate that. So I'm curious, before we go into asking Jeff, Jay, what kind of a boat are you in, and how does that suit your style? I know the trolling motor is a fairly new addition to the boat, and go into that.
I'm in a Old Town Predator PDO. I've pedaled it for the last 3 years. Over the winter, I did add a Motor Guide XI3 bow mount. I really like that thing for tournaments, but for just fishing, I find pedaling a lot more relaxing, and I can control my position pretty good with that. But spot lock's pretty awesome. I mean, catch a fish, click the button, take your picture, sit there. You ain't got to worry about blowing across the lake or anything else.
I like the idea.
And I can stand up a lot too and fish shore lines or whatever I need to do.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the motor in the front. Like, I think it makes more sense to have a trolling motor, bow mounted, or even in your situation, yours is far enough forward, versus like a power pole, at the back of the boat. I just don't see the advantage to the power pole behind you, because I like to nose into the wind when I'm fishing. I think I would go that route like you did, Jay, versus going with like a power pole in the back.
Yeah, it maneuvers amazing too. I mean, you can spin around in a 360 just as fast as you could, feel like you're going to tip out every once in a while, but
do you
it's a
use
lot
it quite
easier
a bit to cover water?
Not so much. I mean, I do, but I'd say I probably pedal farther than I use the motor typically, but
Cool. What about you, Jeff? I think you're in a pro angler. Talk about that and about how you've kind of fit that thing to your style and that kind
Yeah.
of finesse approach.
I'm a PA 12. Yeah, having spot lock would have come in really handy. Fishing that north wind off that point, because it was definitely tough trying to hold position. You work with what you got. I started with a or a paddle kayak, and so this is a good upgrade for me. I like my kayak. Obviously, I'd love to have spot lock, but that's for another day.
Yeah, heck yeah. That even make that finesse fishing even easier, huh?
Yeah.
Shad wants to know: Do you guys stand a lot and fish, or do you find yourself sitting down a lot? I'd imagine for the guys with motors, they're probably standing quite a bit with the spot lock. Jay?
Yeah, I stand with the motor. I'll stand as much as I can. If I'm pedaling, then obviously you're setting if you're moving. I
Same.
don't even have an anchor on my boat anymore, so I'm pretty much either moving or not.
Spot locked, yeah.
Yeah.
Same for you, Chad, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically about the only time I sit down is like if I'm making a big move from one spot to another, um, and that's pretty awesome too to be able to just put it on like you set your heading and then you can just retie baits or change baits or get something to eat, and you can just kind of reflect on what decisions you're making if you want to do something different. And I actually find that like sometimes I'm getting to my spot and I don't have everything ready yet, and I just think it helps use your time more efficiently, being able to do that. But that's about the only time I'm sitting down was when I'm moving spots. If I'm fishing, I'm basically standing up.
Heck yeah. Jeff, you're kind of in my boat. You're running a pedal drive. Are you sitting quite a bit?
I mean, I prefer to stand. When I'm standing, I'm at the mercy of the wind. So yeah, I do like to stand. It just gives you a better vantage point, better accuracy, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I probably only stand maybe a quarter of the time.
I thought when I got I'm in the Outback, the Hobie Outback, and I got it rigged out, rigged to the teeth here. But I kind of thought it was a silly idea to use my stakeout pole with my, fancy pedal drive kayak with, the 180 drive and all this stuff. I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to mount a anchor trolley on my boat so I can use my stakeout pole, because I do sit a lot and I really don't like to. Just being able to anchor down and stand more, the style of fishing that I do, it would suit me well just to stake down in the shallow water and do some flipping and cover some area.
Yeah, I've got a stakeout pole hopefully showing up tomorrow because I think that'll help out a bunch.
But I think you need the anchor trolley. I mean, in the Hobies at least, I don't have, like my old kayak. I had some scuppers up there in my kind of cockpit area, and I don't have those in the Hobies. So you'll have to find a good way to anchor that to your boat.
Yeah, and I do have an anchor trolley on mine, so
Dude,
yeah.
You're a smarter guy than I am. So we're gonna kind of go backwards here, but I do want to know. We'll start with you, Jay. What got you into fishing, and then more specifically, what got you into kayak fishing?
I grew up fishing. My dad fished, my grandpa fished, my uncle fished. So I grew up fishing with them a lot. I always enjoyed fishing. Me and my grandpa would go to Colorado for like about a year, or not about a year, every year for about a week, fly fishing and walking the rivers up there and And then I kind of grew up walleye fishing mostly is what we targeted. I always kind of wanted to bass fish, watching people catch bass on TV, but never really had an opportunity to do that. And I pretty much stopped fishing for probably about 10 years. Got into mountain bikes pretty big between riding and racing, and that pretty much took all my spare time really. And things changed and started fishing a little bit again just for fun, and then started deciding I could actually just catch bass anywhere I went basically, and fishing from shore. And then decided I was tired of being on the shore and got a Sin 12T paddle kayak and spent probably 2 years paddling that thing around, and decided I was tired of fighting the wind every day in Kansas, and got the Old Town Predator, and pretty much been hooked ever since.
Heck yeah. For those of you guys that don't know, Jay's a hammer. Jay won AOI in 2019 in our club there, Capital Kayak Anglers, right, Jay?
Yep.
Very close to winning in 2020. Had I not switched some things up, he probably would have won. But I scheduled an event on top of something that he had planned. And so anyways, he was up there, and I think that year you won Flint Hills.
Yeah, I won Flint, and then the KBF State Challenge Championship stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I was 1 point off a Air Capital AOI last year.
Yeah, I think it was that close.
But I wasn't leaving Gunnersville for that. So.
No. So, Chad, real quick here. What's your history? We know you've done some bass boat stuff. You fished some bass boat tournaments in the past. What got you into it? What got you into fishing even before that? And then how did you make that transition from bass boat to kayak?
Yeah, I mean, it's just growing up, fishing farm ponds and stuff. I mean, I didn't have any influences. Like, my dad didn't fish. My grandparents didn't fish very much. Certainly not like tournaments or anything like that. If anything, it was just like, bobber fishing and stuff. But that's pretty much what I did growing up. But when I was in college, I saw a flyer for a bass club, and I wanted to learn more about fishing like artificial lures and stuff like that. So I joined a bass club and just kind of took off from there. I mean, I've been fishing some bass boat tournaments and clubs and some different circuits now for like close to 25 years. But I just started to get burned out. I was fishing bigger and bigger tournaments. I was finding that to get to places I wanted to fish, which was way up rivers and creeks and flooded timber and shallow areas, I was doing a ton of damage to my boat. I went through 2 prop shafts last year. I hit a tree at Truman I was hauling pretty good and nailed a tree up in Tebow and did $8,000 worth of hull damage to my bass boat. So I was, you're constantly worried about, is your big motor going to blow and all. The money it got to be more and more of like something that I was thinking about, and the fishing just kind of got to where I wasn't enjoying it anymore. I was worried about the money I was spending, and I started seeing Moyak guys I'd be pre-fishing for a tournament, and I'd see Moyak guys out there in their kayaks, and it started to intrigue me, and I started to think more and more about it. And by the end of last year, I was just kind of like burnt out on the bass boat thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a kayak, and I'm going to try this deal out. And the simplicity of it is what drew me to it, compared to owning a bass boat. The simplicity of, like, I had high dollar, almost 10 grand worth of electronics on my bass boat. And honestly, I don't feel like it was helping me catch fish. It was more of a distraction, and just going back to having just a single graph and just, side scan and down scan. I'm not worrying about live scope and having multiple graphs and all that stuff. I really like the simplicity. I really like not having the boat payment. And as I got into it more, I'm finding that the people are great. Josh Boothe is like, he's running some of the best tournaments I've ever fished in my life, and that's no joke. I fished a lot of bass boat tournaments. The way he organizes his tournaments, the communication, the payouts, all the giveaways, and it's just I've never fished any better tournaments, and so it's been really exciting for me as I've been fishing tournaments now for 4 or 5 months out of a kayak, and I'm not missing fishing out of a bass boat at all. So yeah, that's just kind of how it happened for me. I just decided I was making that $500 a month boat payment was just getting to be too much. So
Nice. Heck yeah. Jeff, what about you? I know you've answered this question before.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of got the same story as everyone else. Grew up fishing farm ponds. Can have fished as long as I can remember. Up about 3 years ago, I got my first kayak, and I've always wanted to, kind of competitive fish, and I saw that there were some clubs around here, and decided to just try out my first one, and so this is my second year of fishing in types of tournaments like this, and I'm hooked. So
yeah, well, you guys are all making a little bit of a splash, and as Josh says, we're glad to have you. I've got a bass boat, and I'm having fun with it right now. I can't figure out what's wrong with my motor. So I feel your pain on that one. Not near as much maintenance on the kayak, that's for sure. All right, so I've got a couple more questions, and then we can all call it a night. I'm sure you guys all have things that you need to be doing. So I appreciate you guys all joining me here tonight. But what I'm going to ask you is, what are your other circuits, like national circuits, other than maybe the All American Series that you guys are going to be participating in this year? And then what are your goals for the year, whether that be at the club level, the local club level, or the regional or the national scale? Jay, we'll start with you.
Only club I'm really fishing with would be the Air Couple Kayak Anglers this year. Probably try to make 2 or 3 more of the All American Series, and other than that, I don't know. I might try to go to the KBF National Championship again. I'm qualified, but I haven't decided if I want to go yet. So that's pretty much this year. Goal-wise, I don't know. AOI would be nice, but I really don't care, to be honest. Just try to have some decent finishes.
Yeah, you go for another AOI.
Yeah, it's always an option, I guess, but I don't know.
Is the BASS, the Bass Nation kayak deal, is that something you might be interested in, or
not really?
Going to the big championship deal?
I feel like if I qualified for it, I probably wouldn't make it out there, so ain't really no reason to even try to qualify for it.
I got you. We had that one on Wilson. You'd have got yourself into the state championship anyways.
Yeah.
What about you, Chad?
Well, I just starting out this year, I joined Moyak. I joined Camo, which are like the 2 main clubs in Missouri, and then I was planning on fishing some of the All American Series events, and I'm now fishing more of them than I originally expected. But those are the main things that I'm fishing. I haven't been able to fish too many Camo because it just gets too busy. Moyak also has a river series, and I'm actually teaming up with Josh to be a team in the river series, and that's going to be a kind of a change for me because I'm really clueless on rivers. So Josh will be somebody good to learn from. But between all of that, it's just keeping me really busy. I don't think I have time for anything else. But I'm hoping next year maybe to look like more at some of the national events. But this year, probably not much. I do want to qualify for the All American Kayak Classic. That's definitely one of my goals for this year. And then, there's that Bassmaster, the national championship. I would really like to qualify for that next year. We have Missouri has their championship qualifier tournament at the end of the year, so I'm going to fish that and maybe get lucky and qualify to go there next year. And other goals is probably like originally I was just trying to make the top 10 in Moyak. Basically, I came into this not knowing what to expect, and it turns out like I've been lucky enough to have some good finishes, and I'm right there close to first place in AOI for both Moyak and the All American Series. So I've kind of got the taste of blood now, and I'm really kind of, I think I'm going to try to win AOI in both. I mean, we still have a lot of tournaments left to go, so I'm not really fooling myself to think that it's going to happen. But I feel like I'm at least on a good pace right now, so I'm definitely going to try for it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I saw that. And somebody made a comment. I don't think I ended up getting it on the screen, but somebody made a comment that you're making a run at AOI for the All American. So
yeah, being that they just count your best 3 tournaments, and I think there's like at least 4 tournaments left. So really, it's still anybody's. It's completely up in the air, but it is nice to have a couple good finishes in there and at least have a chance.
heck yeah. What about you, Jeff?
I just stay pretty local. Do Flint Hills Kayak Anglers. I'll fish with them. And then I've done 2 of the All American events so far, and I'll probably just do 1 more to get my 3 events in. Probably plan on going down to 10 killer. And I mean, I'm sitting all right now. If I can get a good, I'd be pretty stoked if I could get, top 15 or top 10 in points in the All American. I'd be pretty happy with that. So that's kind of my goal, I guess, for the year.
How's it looking in AOI for the Flint Hills?
Oh, I'm probably middle of the pack right now. It's I've missed 1 or 2 already, and so I'm going to be lucky to get enough qualifying events to even qualify for. We'll see. I just like to have fun.
Yeah. Jay, is this your biggest bag you've ever turned in, or have you turned in a bigger limit on a single day? 5 fish.
I think that's the biggest limit for a tournament that I've caught.
Yeah, it's pretty dang impressive. What do you guys think? Those lengths and everything, that's got to be close to a 20-pound bag, right?
Yeah, probably. I'd say the 319s were all 4-pound-ish, 4 to a little over 4. 18s that I had were 3.5s probably. So getting up close to 20.
Heck yeah. I wonder, did anybody look into how the bass boat guys did?
Never did.
Last I saw, as of last night or the night before, someone said they hadn't posted anything.
Oh, okay. They said all the kayak guys caught all the fish.
Yeah, we left them where we caught them, though.
That's true. That's, I wonder how many of the fish that we caught ended up getting weighed, ended up in somebody's live well.
That area back there, about September, will start dying because they all go to weigh-in. All the big ones, anyway. You'll start catching 13 to 15s all the time, but it gets harder and harder to catch any big ones back there.
Yeah, and they'll just hang out wherever they're, they'll just kind of
they'll make it. Yeah, they'll make it back eventually, but you probably ain't going to see them again that year.
Yeah.
Find them again in the next spring.
That's I never really thought about that, but that's kind of different. Yeah, there's a lot of tournaments on that lake. There really is. So I'm really impressed with how well that lake is fishing and how it can seem to handle the pressure. So excited to definitely see the All American come back next year. Hope to see all three of you guys join us for that as well, and hopefully we can all encourage some buddies to join and make this a big event. But I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to hang out with us and talk some fishing. Hopefully we'll see you guys again, and you guys all do well on your local clubs, and Chad and Scott, maybe we'll see you guys moving up the ladder in the All American. I think Jay's going to make a run at it. He's definitely in a good position to do it. I want to join you guys at 10 Killer, so hopefully we all reunite there.
Sounds good.
So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Appreciate you guys all joining. Was there anything else that you guys may want to mention that's going on that you want to give a shout out to or anything like that? Something I missed?
Not that I can think of.
I mean,
you do.
If it's all right.
Go ahead, Chad.
If it's all right, I just like to give a shout out to Everhart's Outdoors. They're a huge supporter of the All American Series and also Moyak, and I've been lucky enough to team up with them this year. But they do, in Missouri at least, they do so much for the kayak community. But they're really appreciated.
Yeah, I'm Team RMP all the way through, right? I mean, that's my employer. I'm really lucky to be a part of that deal. But anybody that is supporting the kayak community, especially at the local levels, like, I'm all for it. So, hell yeah, make sure if you guys are in the area, check them out, Everhart's. But all right, guys, I'm going to sign off here. Thank you, and we will see you again real soon on the water.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.